Hey Joe, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, great.
Dude, thank you for joining. So great to see you.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem, man. Appreciate you wanting to talk to me.
Oh my gosh, dude, phenomenal.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you liked it?
Oh my
Have you
gosh,
read it?
so
Have you
good.
finished it?
So good.
Good.
What I'd like to do is just let you tell your remarkable journey. It's just an amazing story. I just like to share your story, share your book, and just give everyone the motivation and the life lessons that you distill in the book and the way you live your life and just to pass all that greatness forward.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it. That sounds great to me.
And it's remarkable to have you on the show. And thank you for all your service because it's
Oh
humbling to
yeah,
have
my
you on.
pleasure. Yeah,
Cool.
no problem.
Cool. We'll get going.
All right, cool.
All
Yeah.
right, here we go. Rob Jones, welcome to Built Not Born.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Rob, it is such an honor to have you on the show. Rob Jones, for the listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, my name is Rob Jones. Currently, I'm a leadership instructor at Echelon Front, so I teach the principles of extreme ownership to people from all walks of life, all industries, teams of all sizes. And I love doing that. And that's what I do currently. But my background is I was in the Marine Corps for 5.5 years as a combat engineer. My job was to find improvised explosive devices, so the little landmines and bombs that the Taliban and Al Qaeda were putting on the ground for us to step on. I would find those things. And unfortunately, in Afghanistan in July of 2010, I stepped on one in the process of trying to find it, and that resulted in double above knee amputations of both my legs. And I recovered at Walter Reed Army Medical Center for about a year and a half, retired from the Marine Corps, started doing sports. I went to the Paralympics in 2012, won a bronze medal in the Paralympics, and used that as a launching point to do some more philanthropical endeavors. I rode my bike across the country in 2013 from Maine to Camp Pendleton, California, and then in 2017 followed that up with a what I call the month of marathons, where we ran a marathon every day for 31 consecutive days. And after that, I started doing some motivational speaking and things of that nature until finally I was fortunate and lucky enough to be offered a position at Echelon Front.
Wow. Besides that, not much going on.
That's a quick rundown for you. I probably could have gone on. You've listened to all my Jocko podcasts. You know how many hours of detail there is in there, but figured I'd give you just a quick rundown.
Wow. Awesome. First off, Rob, thank you for your service, for being here, sharing your remarkable story. Some guests you just don't know where to begin, and yours is one of them. Also, too, I'd like to add, we're going to draw a lot. You wrote an epic book called Put Your Legs On: One Man's Journey to Survive, Recover, and Live by Rob Jones, forward by the one and only Jocko Willink. Amazing book. I'd like to do is maybe just walk, if we could just walk through your journey, got some questions.
Sure.
Yeah, Rob, let's start it with this. I'm just going to start all the way at the beginning. You were a computer science major at Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, you were starting way at the beginning.
Way beginning. Hey, just it's safe career path, probably an awesome, comfortable future ahead for you. Then you read the book Brotherhood of Heroes about the Battle of Peleliu, one of the bloodiest battles in World War II, and that made you decide to join the Marine Corps. What was it about that book that made you say, I need to do something beyond my own self-interest?
Yeah, I was a computer science major, and it would have been a pretty solid career path had I been a good student. I was not a good student. I wanted to make video games. That's what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, I spent way too much time playing them, not enough time studying to learn how to make them. And so by the time I was a junior, my college was not going very well for me. I was failing some courses I needed to be able to pass. And it was at that point that I read Brotherhood of Heroes about the Battle of Peleliu, and part of the reason why I read it was because I was having a little bit of a personal crisis. I was not doing well. I was missing things. I didn't know what I was missing. I didn't Things didn't feel right for me, and I read that book, and then it struck a chord with me. I read about the that battle, and what I realized was I needed brotherhood. I needed camaraderie. I needed to be a selfless person, and I needed courage is what I needed, and that's what the Marines at Peleliu exemplified to me in the most and primarily. And that's so I saw that's what I needed, and I figured the best way for me to get all those things was to join the Marine Corps and go to war like they did.
My only knowledge of something like that amazing mini series HBO had a few years back called The Pacific.
Yes. Hmm.
Crazy. I mean, the Band of Brothers, just unbelievably
Hmm.
epic, but like The Pacific had a brutality of it that was just unique upon itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Crazy.
mean, both shows were really good. Both wars were atrocious, but yeah, the I just so happened if I had read the what was the book about Easy Company, I forget what it was, but if I read about them, maybe I would have gone and joined, the Airborne or something, but I read a book about the Marine Corps.
I love how you mentioned that the Marine Corps has like the lowest budget where you go to other services, they're like playing up all the things they can do for you, and the Marines are like, nah, I don't know if you can make it. No,
Yeah, well the mindset for the Marine Corps is you're the thing that you're getting from us is you get the opportunity to be a Marine.
so
And
cool.
that is, kind of opposite of what a lot of branches of the military do, which is they're trying to offer you bonuses and this is what you're going to get, this is what you're going to get. And the Marine Corps, all they say is what you're going to get is the chance to be a Marine. And yeah, that struck a chord with me. But I gave the recruiter the easiest job he ever had. I just went down and I told him I wanted to join. So he didn't have to convince me at all. He just had to figure out where he needed, what numbers he needed to hit for that month, and he persuaded me towards those.
Next question. You enlisted as a reservist, right, with plans to become an
Yes.
officer after graduation. But
Yeah.
when your reserve unit announced the volunteer platoon was deploying to Iraq, you said, quote, screw being an officer, and you deployed as an enlisted Marine.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big call. Like, what led you to choose the harder, more dangerous path?
The entire purpose of joining the Marine Corps was to go to war so I could find all those things that the Marines at the Battle of Peleliu showed me. And I figured I wanted those things as soon as possible. So the best way to get that would be to deploy, not go to officer candidacy school. And the other part of that too is that I didn't, who knows what I was going to get as my MOS after I went to OCS and TBS and all those things. There's no guarantee that I'm going to get a combat MOS. So I figured the best shot for me would be to take this opportunity to deploy in a role that I knew would had at least a good chance of seeing combat.
Wow. There's a scene in Full Metal Jacket, I believe, where they're yelling out the MOSs after boot camp. And they go to
Yeah.
one MOS, I forget the number, combat engineering. He goes, you get to go
Yeah.
out and find landmines, right? Like I remember that line.
Yeah, I don't know what it was back then, but 1371 when
Wow.
I joined.
Wow. So, Rob, you grew up in a horse farm, right?
Yeah.
And you credit a lot of that with teaching you like a work ethic. Like what does shoveling horse stalls at 5 a.m. teach you about being a Marine, and what kind of lessons you carry into combat with you that you took from the horse farm?
I think having to clean out horse stalls, what it teaches you that I could use when I was in the Marine Corps is just being able to do things that I didn't want to do. I definitely did not want to be cleaning out horse stalls, but I had to do it. And so it's about, I just had to accept that I had to do it and then get it done as fast as I could in a way that was acceptable so I could go and do something else that I wanted to do. So it's just about being able to accept that you have to do things sometimes that you don't want to do. And the earlier you accept that, the earlier you can get that thing done, the more likely you're going to be able to go do something else that you want to do.
Let's jump into your first deployment. You mentioned your first deployment to Iraq in 2008. It was relatively
Uh-huh.
calm, right?
Yeah.
Relatively calm and kind of finding weapon caches. What was your first deployment like?
Yeah, so the first deployment was we would go out to a patrol base, which is, a small, maybe one or two football field sized patch of dirt that had tents in it and was surrounded by stuff called the HESCO barriers, which is just big squares filled with dirt. And we would go out on patrols, and the local people would tell us that they thought they remembered there being a cache of weapons buried in somewhere in their town. And we would go over there, and the infantry marines would cordon off the area, keep it secured, and then me and another combat engineer, or just me, whoever was there, would go out and sweep literally every square inch of that area until we either found the weapons that the local people were telling us about, or we decided that there wasn't anything there after all. And usually that would just be we'd grit it off and just go back and forth. And whenever we found a metal signature that we thought was a buried weapons, I'd get out my e-tool and just start digging.
Wow.
until I found whatever was making my metal detector go off. And usually what we would find would be things like RPGs, grenades, machine guns, machine gun rounds. Nothing that was particularly dangerous in and of itself. It was, all military munitions. There's the potential for things to be booby trapped, but none of the stuff that we found was booby trapped. But yeah, it would just be stuff like that in burlap sacks, and we'd pull it out, and then EOD would come and grab it, and they would usually drive it back to the base and destroy it with the explosives.
Wow. Do you ever want to just blow it up yourself?
Yeah, we wanted to, and we could have, but the one of the problems was that a lot of this stuff was found in town.
Okay.
So we would have to transport it to our patrol base and blow it up there. And the vast majority of the time, our patrol base that we were at was kind of wasn't set up for doing that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Whereas the EOD, they had a trailer they could bring out, they could transport the stuff safely, and they could go to a range somewhere and just blow it up safely. So it made more sense to have them come
Yeah.
out.
Is it fun to blow that stuff up? Is that fun or not fun?
Blowing stuff up is very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think that seemed that would be fun. Like you find it and you
It's
like you
as
get
fun as you might think it would be. It's even
yeah.
more fun than you think it would
That
be.
sounds like a good yeah, that sounds like pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the IED, which it's just the word petrifies me. Like that is just like the
That's
like you write about the IED, you write it's an evil weapon, a cowardly weapon, an effective weapon that plants itself in your mind and is always there waiting. Would you mind walking us through what it's like to patrol, knowing that every step could be the next one could be danger? What is that like? That mindset is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, having that kind of thought going through your head is certainly frightening, but at the same time, I couldn't really be thinking that way the entire time I was out. I would have to a little bit be in it's about finding a balance between denial and staying aware and awareness. So you have to be constantly aware that these things are out there, but if I was thinking that the next step I took at all times was an IED, then I wouldn't really be able to move around very effectively. So I kind of almost had to be in denial a little bit and say that and just recognize that the next step probably wasn't going to be an IED. Now, that being said, that's something when I'm just out walking around. And then there's other areas where there'd be a stronger likelihood that there would be IEDs, like choke points and things like that. So if I was just walking around in the desert, it's reasonable to say that the next step probably isn't going to be an IED. But if I'm going over a bridge, or if I'm going along a wall, or if I'm in these areas where we knew the Taliban liked to put IEDs, then that balance goes a lot, skews a lot more towards the being aware of your surroundings type of situation versus figuring that the next step probably wasn't going to be an IED.
Wow.
And
You
that at that point, then yeah, it's very scary and harrowing, and you have to be just on the alert for any little sign that there might be an IED that you're about to step on.
how long does it take to get that mindset where you can't think that way? The way I was thinking, you can't think. You have to you do your job and you one foot in front of the other. Like how long does it take to flip that switch, to have that mindset where you're just constantly making forward progress, doing your job and not having fear overcome you? How long does that take?
I don't remember ever having that affect me too much. I mean, certainly when you first get there, you have to push that down a little bit more than later on. But the first couple weeks, you kind of get used to it, and then at least for me, after the first couple weeks, I kind of got used to the fact that that's where I was, and I was going to have to walk places. I couldn't be thinking that every step I was going to take, I would never walk anywhere. So
Mhm.
probably first week or two after that, then it became normal.
You documented the IED detection process like in meticulous detail. You speak of like swinging the metal detector 1 or 2 inches above the ground. Quote, you're moving dirt a nanometer at a time with the gentleness of a butterfly landing on a daisy. That sounds like Thoreau wrote that, man. That's good stuff. The gentleness of a butterfly landing on a daisy. Almost, you're talking like surgical precision under life or death pressure. What is that taught? I mean, that taught. How long does it take to get that technique down where you feel comfortable doing that in a war zone? Is
Well, we did a lot of training, so we practiced finding inert IEDs in our workup, and I would even on deployment, I would go bury IEDs for the people in my fire team and have them
Mhm.
try and find them and practice digging them up. So it's kind of like clearing a room or doing anything in the military. You do it enough times in training, and when you go out and do it in the real world, it feels pretty normal. So in terms of developing that technique, it didn't take too long to, I mean, it took a lot of practice, but by the time we got there, the technique was already pretty well ingrained. It was just now we're doing it for real, and if you do it wrong, then you could, get blown up.
You mentioned you moved from Delaram. Am I saying that correct? Delaram?
I said it Delaram. I could
Okay.
be Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different pronunciations.
And I'm sounding like Delaware. If I'm come from Philly, I'm sounding like it's.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, that was more of a pacified area, but to the
Yeah.
Sangin, what you called Taliban Central, like that was
It was one of the hotter spots at the time. This Taliban had slowly been getting pushed out. But yeah, Musa Kela and Sangin my deployment was essentially the front line of the battle in Helmand.
you're talking daily gunfights, mortar attacks, pushing into enemy territory. Do you remember the moment where in your mind it switched from your own deployment to this is war? Because you went from like a pacified area to an area that was a really forward area. Was there a moment where
Yeah, I
the
mean probably the first time we started getting shot at. I mean, it doesn't really feel like war when you're not actually getting shot at or you're not experiencing the dangers of war. There weren't tons of IEDs in Delaram. There was one firefight. I wasn't even a part of it. There wasn't really tons of things that made me feel in danger out there. And then once we started getting shot at in Musa Kela and Sangin, that's what war is getting shot at from the enemy. You're trying to get blown up by the enemy. So that's when it started to feel like real war to me, when the first time those bullets started flying overhead.
would you mind get to August of 2010? You're in Sangin, Afghanistan. You're on patrol. You're doing your job that you've done hundreds of times. Would you mind walking us through the day you got injured?
Yeah, this is actually July 22nd, 2010.
Okay.
And we were just, our battalion was doing a big mission where we were just going to move our entire battalion to the north and start taking over a bunch of mud compounds in Taliban, territory. And what we would do is move our entire battalion, so the large column of vehicles, all the infantry, we would just start walking up to where we were going to go. And if the Taliban tried to stop us, we would kill them or they would retreat or whatever it would be. And eventually we would get to the compounds we wanted to take over. We'd clear them and then send them up as patrol bases, stay there for a while, secure the area with security patrols, and then just keep repeating that. So this is the second time that we did that process. And my part of my job that day was I was with an infantry squad that was protecting the flanks of the vehicle column, the outside of the vehicle column, and I was their engineer. So whenever they were patrolling, along the side of the vehicle column, I would have been on point or close to the point. And anytime we came to an area along that our route that they wanted me to check for IEDs, I would go out and I would check it. So a couple examples of that would have been we went over a couple bridges or we went through these dry creek beds that were pretty, the banks were pretty high, but there was a dirt path that went to the bottom. So I would check that. I would check along walls, things like that, when we were walking through these little single track forest trails and these tree groves, things of that nature I'd be checking. And then eventually we got to a point where we took a knee. We were taking a rest to coordinate, get some water, things like that, get a little snack. And when we stepped out, our point man stepped on an IED. And fortunately for him, the IED didn't explode. It malfunctioned. Just the blasting cap went off, which is, about the half the size of that pencil right there. That's about how big a blasting cap is. And it's filled with very volatile explosives, and they would pack that into half of a bit pen, and they would set their IED up. And for whatever reason, the blasting cap exploded, but it didn't initiate the main charge because they would shove the blasting cap down into a big jug of ammonium nitrate. So the environment probably got to it, probably got wet. Whatever the case was, the blasting cap exploded. Nothing else exploded, so that guy was fine. But that now became an area that we were essentially 100% certain there was going to be another IED because the Taliban like to put their IEDs in clusters. They put one here, one up here, because they knew if one guy stepped on an IED, everybody else would have to come and help him out. and hopefully we would come and step on the other IEDs. So they put them in clusters, so we knew it was essentially guaranteed there was going to be another one. So that's when I got out my metal detector to find a safe path through, so we could continue on with what we needed to do. We still needed to keep going. And so I got out my metal detector and I started searching in the way that I describe in the book. And then all I remember is just immediately going from searching on my feet to on my back, screaming bloody murder and all these different things. I could hear were screams and I that did really deafening ringing in my ears. I had tunnel vision. I was just had this tunnel that lit up to the sky, and I could taste dust and this distinct chemical smell of an explosion in my mouth and my nose. And then I remember that my legs felt like they had fallen asleep, kind of like when you fall asleep on your arm, and then it kind of hurts. It's so numb that it hurts for a while. So it was kind of like that feeling, except magnified by 100, 200 times of extremely powerful numbness feeling. And it was almost like my conscious mind had been completely detached from and retracted back and it was put into this cave because I could see what was happening, but I wasn't telling my body to do anything. It was I had no control over what my body was doing. I was experiencing it in a very fundamental way. I was experiencing what was happening, but I wasn't telling my body to scream. I wasn't telling my body to do anything. So it's like my consciousness and my body had been disconnected from each other. But over time, probably about a minute or a minute and a half, endorphins set in. My fellow Marines finally got to me. They put tourniquets on my legs to stop the bleeding. The corpsman got there a few seconds later, gave me a shot of morphine, and that's when everything calmed down, and my conscious mind came back. And I started thinking about what my future was going to be like. I envisioned having to be in a wheelchair forever. I envisioned having to be some sort of an invalid, being taken care of by my mom. I figured I wasn't going to be able to go to the gym. I was going to have to leave the Marine Corps, all these things. And I figured if that was what my life was going to be like, I just figured these guys should just kill me. So I asked them to kill me. And, of course, they didn't. They refused. And then finally, when they had called in the helicopter was on its way. They loaded me up onto a stretcher. They carried the stretcher to a tank, put me in the back of the tank, and then I got another shot. And that's when I went unconscious again.
Wow. First off, thank you for sharing that. So it initially happens. The shock portion, how long does that last? That minutes, hours, days? Like you said, you had tunnel vision, and all of a sudden, then you kind of calmed down a bit after the morphine and your fellow Marines got to you. Is that like minutes, hours? Like how long does that take to you remember maybe waking up in a hospital bed?
Well, I didn't wake up in the hospital bed until it was actually 2 days between waking up, between when I got put in the back of the tank and getting that shot and when I woke up again. But for me, it was an instant. I don't,
Mhm.
I was unconscious the whole time. So, it's like, when you fall asleep, you don't experience the time that you're asleep. So for me, that was an instant. And then I estimate that I was probably unconscious for about 20 seconds after I stepped on the IED. But again, for me, it was instantaneous from my experience. It probably took about after the corpsman gave me that shot, it probably took about a minute maybe before my conscious mind was able to return and everything kind of calmed down. Morphine or whatever they had acts, it's
Mhm.
a fast acting drug, so it didn't take too long for me to be able to start thinking clearly again after that.
So the center of the blast in Afghanistan to I think Bethesda Naval Medical Center. How many days did that take for you from?
Well, blast to the next time I woke up would have been in Germany, which is 2 days. Then Germany to Bethesda was probably another 2 days.
And at what point do you realize the extent of your injuries, like exactly where you are and what you're dealing with?
I knew immediately that portions of my leg were going to be missing. Just intrinsically, I knew that. I didn't get up and look, but I knew that just based on what I was feeling in this, I knew that something on my legs is going to be missing. I remember I checked my hands and my hands looked fine. I went to sit up, but I decided not to because just in case it was one of those situations where, like when you're a kid, if you skin your knee and it's fine until you look at it, and then once
Yeah.
you look at it, it magnifies. I started to sit up and look, but then I went, what if it's like that? And I just laid back down. That's kind of what I remember.
You bypassed what's it, the Kibler Ross model? What is it called?
Oh, is it Kubler?
Kubler, yeah,
Kubler-Ross?
Kubler, yeah. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the
five
Kubler-Ross.
stages of grief, I
Yeah,
guess.
you
Yeah.
skipped a whole bunch of them, didn't you?
I certainly went through them quickly. Maybe I don't know if I experienced or skipped
You,
them or not, but I went pretty quickly to the acceptance part.
I just took some notes from the book and all the podcasts I listened to on. You describe that like the model goes from what goes denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. You write,
Yeah.
I instinctively skipped the first four steps and went straight to acceptance because spending my limited energy on those emotions would be a pointless waste. Wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure if I went back and analyzed and if I really tried to force the issue and say, well, what would the other four stages have been before acceptance? I could probably figure out what they were, but the point that I was trying to make there was I went through it quickly. It didn't take me that long to get to the acceptance part, and wasting time on all those different emotions, all those different stages are a waste of time. And so you're going to do yourself a lot better if you just get straight to acceptance. So you should start moving forward.
Yeah, let's get to the Rocky story here, man. Just remarkable, remarkable comeback. You talk about transforming negative energy into positive action, turning the loss of your legs into fuel for rowing, biking, running. So profound. How did you convert that injury into horsepower? How soon did that happen?
Yeah, I think the concept that you're talking about there is what is it? Thermodynamics, where energy can't be created, can't be destroyed, just it can just be shifted to something else, it can be turned into something else. So when I stepped on the IED, a bunch of negative energy entered my life. And so I couldn't destroy that. What I could do was turn it into positivity and turn it into energy to move forward. So yeah, I think that's the concept that you're talking about there.
You remember the first rep of anything you did in rehab?
Yeah, the first rep I did was the physical therapist came into my room and all they had me do is just lift my stumps up off the
Okay.
bed. That was it. So I was laying there and everything, I had a little pain button that delivered Dilaudid every time I pushed it. I could push it once every 4 minutes or something like that. So I had this little pain button, but I still remember that lifting my legs up hurt a lot. And all they had me do is just I was laying on my back. They said lift your right leg 10 times. Okay, lift your left leg 10 times. All right, lift your right leg up and then move it in and out, side to side 10 times, and then same thing with the left leg. And that was it. That was the entire session. They just wanted me to move it around. And that was the first rep. But then after that, as things started to get less painful for me to move around, yeah, I saw this little. I think I remember one day my physical therapist didn't come or something like that. They couldn't make the appointment, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I thought I had an appointment, but it turns out I didn't. But they didn't come, and I remembered I wanted to do something, so I looked up at my how hospital beds they have the bed, and then there was a bar that goes from the head of the bed up and over down to the foot of the bed, and then attached to that bar is a chain with a triangle thing for you to grab onto so you can sit up. So I had one of those. So I pulled myself up and I just started doing, I don't know if I did a pull up or I just did rows on that thing.
Wow.
And I don't remember how many I did, but I did something. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that was going to move me forward just a little bit. And I saw that bar and I grabbed onto it and did it because I was just determined to get out of the bed as soon as I could.
Wow. Awesome. When do the prosthetics come into play? How soon into like to the rehab and healing process does that happen?
I didn't get them for 2 months, but they came into play pretty much immediately because I didn't know what life was going to be like. I didn't know anything about what to expect now. I accepted what I didn't I still didn't know what the path forward was going to be for me. So I was asking questions to the nurses or maybe people just came in and proactively told me don't worry because eventually you're going to get you're going to get prosthetic legs and you're going to be able to do just about anything you want to be able to do. So this is just temporary. And so that's when prosthetic legs kind of came into play is that it gave me something to work towards. It gave me some hope, or it showed me that there was a next step to get to. If you heal enough here, you get to physical therapy, you get your legs, then you can start on this big trajectory towards recovery and essentially getting back the life that you, or portions of the life that I lost, like self-confidence, self-reliance, being able to walk
Mm.
around, do things on my own. And that's what I wanted at that point and so prosthetics came into play pretty much immediately for me. but I didn't get my first set of legs for probably 6 weeks or maybe even 2 months because you can't put a prosthetic on a leg that's still healing. So it takes a while. It took about 4 weeks for my body to heal the wounds for the most part, to get a skin graft for this big giant wound that I had on the inside of my right thigh. And then I got transferred over to Walter Reed to begin physical therapy. But even then, I couldn't get legs because I still had stitches and staples in certain parts. So I had to wait for those to be, for the wounds to be completely sealed up and healed. And then once that happened, then I was able to go in and get casted for my legs. So that, yeah, so that was probably six weeks, 2 months ish.
Can you describe the first time you put your prosthetics on? What did that feel like?
It hurt a lot.
Wow.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
I was excited about it. I was really pumped about it. But the first time you put a prosthetic leg on, what they do is they cast it with plaster, and they take the plaster mold of your leg, and then they do a bunch of stuff in the back room for a few days, and they make it out of plastic, and then but that the plastic mold isn't it's not going to be perfect yet. So what they do is you put it on, and you kind of figure out these different spots where they need to make minor adjustments. And the first leg I put on was my left leg because it healed first. And I remember that one of the adjustments that had to get made was a little bit tight at the bottom because I had my full femur on the left, and so your femur goes thin, and then has that big bulbous part on the bottom. So the leg has to mimic that, but so it's like a thin part. But then so I had to fit my bulbous femur through the thin part of the leg. That was a little bit tight, so it hurt to put that on a little bit. So they had to open that up a little bit. And then I remember there was a part on the bottom where it was pressing on this thing called a neuroma, which is a big bundle of nerves that can form because your nerve gets cut off and it tries to regrow itself. It doesn't have anywhere to go, so it just forms a big ball of nerves. And if that nerve gets pressed on, I mean, to this day, if that little section gets pressed on, it hurts a lot. So I remember when I stood up and the socket pressed on that neuroma and it hurt a lot. But that's what getting a prosthetic leg is all about, especially at first, is getting it fitted right. If it doesn't fit comfortably, then you can't use it. But and part of the process of getting it to fit comfortably is having to endure a little bit of pain so you know where it doesn't fit comfortably.
Thanks for walking us through that.
Sure.
You mentioned too during the recovery process. You have a quote: "If you ain't falling, you're not working hard enough." And you said there's a lot
Yes.
of you hear a lot of falls in the clinic and stuff. And could you describe that? I thought that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that quote came from Dan, who was a double above me amputee, Dan Canossen. He was kind of my hero when I was in physical therapy because he had been there a year before me, and he was able to do all the stuff I wanted to be able to do, and it gave me a lot of hope because I saw him doing the stuff that I wanted to do, and so I figured to myself, well, if he can do it, then it seems at least feasible that I would be able to do the same thing because we're both human beings, and so that's what I decided to do. And the where that quote came from was I was kind of concerned about falling down because it's embarrassing. You fall down and everybody in the clinic looks at you until you get back up and then everybody continues on with their way. So, but it's a little bit embarrassing, and that fear of being embarrassed can prevent you from doing things that you need to do. Or it can stop you from putting in the effort that you need to put in. It can stop you from pushing yourself a little bit further, which is what you need to do in physical therapy. And I think that quote came about because my physical therapist asked Dan, like, "Hey Dan, have you ever fallen down?" And that's what he said. He said, "Look, if you don't fall down in here, then you're not trying hard enough because eventually, if you're trying hard enough, you're pushing yourself to your limits. You're probably going to fall down. You're probably going to fail."
If you're not falling, you're not working hard enough. And it's so hard. You just got to subjugate your ego and just keep falling. And the more you fall, the more you're going to succeed, right?
Yeah, subjugate your ego and recognize that nobody cares.
Yeah.
If you
No. Yeah.
if they look over there because it's loud,
Yeah.
they go, "Whoa, what happened over there?" "Oh, okay, that guy fell. I don't care. I'm doing my own thing over here." But it's
Yeah.
only in your mind that you think that people actually care.
That is so crazy because like that principle, like for everything from as serious as what you were doing, like recovering from a huge injury, to like whatever, like someone putting a blog post out in the world, like people are just worried about
Yeah.
themselves. So no one's thinking about you. Like it's like you think, oh, they're going to make fun of me or they're going to laugh. You're probably just going to get ignored because so many people are just focused on themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they think about you for the time period that you're in their life. Like, let's say, I sometimes people get nervous about parallel parking or something. They're afraid that the people behind them are going to be mad if they don't do it right, or they're going to make fun of them. And yeah, that person's probably gonna be like, God, get out of my way. I just want to go out. But once they go around,
Yeah,
they
they'll remember
they're
that.
going to dinner or they're doing whatever they got to do. They're not thinking about you. So, I mean, just don't worry about it. Who cares?
Yeah, move
Yeah.
on, fall, play your game, man. That's such a great life lesson. Hey, I just want to mention too, your dad looked like such a baller. Your dad retired and lived with you for months in a hotel near Walter Reed, serving as your caregiver. Can you talk about that? He seemed like just such an amazing dude.
Yeah, it was a slightly serendipitous timing because he had just retired right before I was wounded. And they told me I needed a non-medical caretaker to live with me for a while just in case I needed anything as I
Mhm.
was transitioning to outpatient housing. And yeah, he dropped everything in his life and he came and lived with me in a hotel. They said, "Hey, you need a non-medical caretaker." And I went, "Dad, you're my non-medical caretaker." And he went, "Okay."
That's neat for a dad. That's an
But yeah, it
instant
was great.
yes.
He accompanied me pretty much everywhere I went for a few months. Then, eventually I got a girlfriend and I was feeling confident and I felt like I could probably live on my own. I wanted to let him get back to his life too. So eventually I went, "Dad, I think I'm good now." And he went ahead and just moved on out. It was a little bit of a sad thing because we had been hanging out so much and it
Yeah,
was kind of sad to see him go. And I could see that he enjoyed being with me, but at some point, it's like when you leave for college, you got to get out on your own.
yeah. How'd your relationship with your dad change during that time? How did it evolve?
I don't know. Yeah, I wish I could say that I really used the time to connect with my dad a lot on a lot of different levels, but I don't think that I really, if I'm looking back on that time, I probably could use it a lot more effectively to build a better relationship with my dad. Not that I don't have a good one, we have a great one, but I probably could have used that time a little bit more effectively to learn more about my dad and become closer during that time period. But it was just nothing really changed a ton. I certainly appreciate him doing that for me, but I don't know that it changed a ton about our relationship. Maybe we probably did become a little bit closer. We hadn't lived together since him and my mom got divorced, so that was the first time I actually lived with him for a long period of time since I was probably 2 years old.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's get to the Olympic part. You reached
But the
out to,
lesson there is, I guess, take advantage of the time that you got.
yeah. Oh,
If
no,
there's one regret, about that whole thing, I wish I would have turned the TV off a little bit more often and talked to my dad a little bit
uh,
more.
totally different circumstances. So my dad passed away this
Yeah.
summer and he had cancer. He got cancer real quick and he had a really rough battle for 3, 4 months and a real aggressive cancer took him. But like the last 2 months, I don't think I've spent more time with him than right before he died. And like we would
Yeah.
I just lay in bed, watch baseball with him and stuff like that. And it's just remarkable. Like I think I talked to him more in those 2 months than I did since I lived with him in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
almost like you wish you would have known that this was going to happen 10 years ago. If
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
known he was going to die, in this way 12 years ago, you would have spent all 12
You
of
would
those
spent way more
years.
time. And I
Yeah.
look back at things that like, wow, I could have hung out with him this day, or I could have done that, or invited him to this. But luckily, like your dad had that opportunity out of this really hard, huge challenge that was presented to you. You had that opportunity to connect with your dad. Good stuff.
Yeah.
How about this? Let's talk about Brad Lewis, man. You reached out to Brad Lewis in the middle of all this. Like, just you think it's enough? Just all right, I'm going to learn to walk again and get back to my life. You reached out to Brad Lewis, an Olympic rower, and convinced him to fly across the country and train you. And like 9 months later, you're like a bronze medalist in the Paralympics. Tell us about that. How's all this
Do you know
crazy?
Brad? Had you heard
I've
of him
heard the
before?
name. No, I've definitely heard the
Yeah.
name, but like I got to know more reading your book and listening to your story.
Yeah, so I found out about the Paralympics when I was in the hospital bed looking up ways to work out again. And I found about the Paralympics and I saw that rowing was in the Paralympics. And I thought maybe that could be something that I could try because I had a couple years to train and everything because that was 2010, the Paralympics were in 2012, and I saw that rowing was in the Paralympics, and I remember it being hard to do in the gym, so I figured maybe
Oh,
I could do rowing.
how much does that machine suck in the gym? The rowing machine? That machine, man.
Yeah, I
That's
mean
a
it
short
can
line for
suck if
that
you make it
machine.
suck. It
Yeah,
only
yeah,
sucks as much as you make it suck. That's the
yeah.
thing. You have to make it suck. But I knew about his book because of other people that I had been following and reading their writings. So then they mentioned that book at some point, and so I'm like, oh, that book that guy wrote about rowing. I should read that book because that might give me some clues about how I should make it to the Paralympics. So I read it. It's about, at the time it was called Assault on Lake Casitas, and I think he's changed the title to Olympian now. So I read the book and I started recovering, and eventually I got to a point where I wanted to go start doing some other stuff, and I found out about a rowing club in DC where I could learn how to row. My coach knew a young lady that was trying to go to the Paralympics too in my category named Oksana, and we met. We got along. We rowed well together, and I was about to retire, and we decided that we wanted to make a run to go to the Paralympics, and yeah, eventually, I we needed a coach at some point, so I emailed Brad and I said he puts his email address all in the book, and so I just said I'm going to go for it. Hey, Brad, this. I read your book. I'm very inspired by it. Here's some similarities between our stories. And what do you think about coming out and coaching us for a while? And he said, sounds good. Let's do it. And so I got
Come
to
on, let's go.
meet one of my heroes and got coached by him. And yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it.
So
But it just goes to
cool.
show you, I mean, same exact thing. I'm sure you get to it, but same exact thing going on Jocko podcast for the first time was just because my wife tweeted him, and he tweeted back and said, "Yeah, I'll love to have him on." So I mean, what is the saying? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I mean, you just gotta
Yeah.
at least. It was a very low risk maneuver. What the worst that was going to happen is he doesn't reply to my email.
Yeah. It's
So
so
yeah,
it's
and it
so
worked out.
so great. And then like what do you do when he shows up? Did you go out to him or did he come out to you? How did that
He
work?
came to us in Charlottesville. So it was him and this guy Roger were our coaches. Roger was the boatman for the UVA rowing team,
Yeah.
and together they coached us.
Wow. When he shows up and he actually pulls up, like what do you think? Like here he comes. That's really cool. He actually said he's going to
I
come.
yeah,
That's wild.
It's surreal because I saw pictures of him, read books about him.
Yeah.
He wrote 3 books about rowing, and a bunch of other short or a bunch of other novels. I just really enjoyed his writing. I read all that stuff, and then all of a sudden, I think the first time I met him, I was picking him up. We are gonna just go to get some pizza and talk about the training plan and what's been going on. And I remember I picked him up, and yeah, it was crazy. There he is. All of a sudden, he's in my car.
Wow.
And it's
So
just the
cool.
guy I've looked up to. Yeah, it's really I've got to meet a lot of people that I admired over the years, and every time it's really surreal. But in the end, they're just normal people,
Yeah.
and after that initial weirdness in my own mind passes away or passes through, then it's
Yeah.
just a normal conversation.
Everyone's just a person, right? No matter how famous they are or what they
Yeah,
did or the legend behind them. But once you get to meet them, I mean, they're people. They're regular. Get
yeah,
up, do everything you do. It's just they might be a little more famous than you are, maybe a little bit more money
yeah,
than you do. But you treat them like a person, and some real connections
yeah,
can happen. What did you learn
yeah.
from him? Is there like any underlying principles or like life lessons you learned from your time with Brad that you can carry on outside of the rowing?
Well, there's that portion of the book about the 5 F's of success that he taught us.
Uh-huh.
I go into about training with him, and there's a chapter about the lessons that he taught us. But I think the main thing I learned from Brad is just what dedication to a sport looks like.
Uh-huh.
What real, true dedication to a sport. What does it look like? And it requires you to put aside, put aside any other priority besides winning gold at the Olympics. That's the only priority that matters
Hmm.
while you're trying to do that. And if you let any other priority creep in there, then that's one less stroke you're going to take, one less second you're going to take training, one less, hour of sleep you're going to get, and it's going to reduce your chances that you're going to make it to the Paralympics or and win a gold medal. So you have to be completely and fully dedicated to what you're about to do. And I think he has a portion in his book about being willing to die on the finish line. Die as you cross the finish line if you can. Have a
Wow.
heart attack while yeah, and that's what full dedication looks like, is being willing to actually die trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
And just lock in, focus, just like make that your
Yeah.
number one priority, right? You can't be trying to do six things at once. That's your main thing, and you're all in, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and anything that might detract from it, you have to say no to.
yeah,
Like, oh, well, let's go out and have a beer. Nope, I'm not doing it. Oh, let's go eat this bad thing. No, I'm not going to do it. Let's stay up late. No, I'm not going to do it. And it's hard
yeah.
to have to give up all those things. It's hard to have to be as so disciplined in that way. But as Jocko says, discipline equals freedom. It opens up the freedom to go win a gold medal.
Yeah, no kidding. Discipline equals freedom. And it's what you do, but it's also what you don't do. Like it's what you don't drink. It's what you don't do at
Yeah,
night. It's what you don't eat. It's what you don't do instead of rowing. It's almost
yeah.
like addition by subtraction, where your not to-do list is probably bigger than your to-do list. Your to-do list is like work on my
Row.
rowing, row, right? Row. That's to do,
Row,
row.
eat,
What not
sleep,
to
lift
do? Yeah.
weights.
Lift weights, hydrate, eat protein, and like row. And then
Yeah.
the not to do list is probably 70 deep, right? Can't do this, can't do that. Like,
It's infinite. It's
yeah, it's
infinity
infinite.
deep because it's like nothing else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. So that ain't enough. Getting a medal in the Paralympics in London with Brad Lewis, you decide, you know what? Let's bike across America. Where's that come from? Or so how did you go from rowing to biking? And
One of the One of the things I wanted to learn how to do when I was in therapy was learn how to ride a bicycle because before I went on my second deployment, I was getting into mountain biking. I sucked at it, but I was starting to get into it. And I thought it would be a fun activity for that I might be able to do. I didn't really see a reason why I shouldn't be able to ride a bicycle. Turns out that nobody had ever ridden a bicycle as a double above knee amputee that was at Walter Reed, not even Dan, but there was a pathway to do it. There were cycling legs. It's just that nobody really figured out how to make it happen yet. And so I kind of saw that as a challenge for myself. And also, I just wanted to be able to ride a bike. I want part of physical therapy is learning how to do all the things that you want to be able to do after you leave therapy so that you can go out and you can live the best life you can. So I wanted to learn how to ride a bike and work with my process for months and months trying to figure it out. And got mentored a little bit by this guy named Rudy Garcia Tolson, who was the only double above knee amputee that anybody knew of that had ridden a regular bicycle and completed an Ironman on a bicycle. And so I got mentored by him a little bit, learned how to ride the bike. And it was just such a big endeavor that I kind of had in the back of my mind, I should ride my bike across the country or something to really do something with this skill that I learned. Plus, at that point I was really into these stories about these really extreme endurance challenges, like the Race Across America. I read a book about the Race Across America, ultra marathons, all sorts of stuff like that. Really struck a chord with me. I was reading all sorts of books about that kind of thing. And so, those two things combined at the same time made me have this idea. It would be cool if I rode my bike across the country at some point. But the Paralympics, that was my primary thing. But the whole time I did the Paralympics, there was something in the back of my mind that didn't feel right about doing it. And it was that there wasn't a whole lot of greater, I didn't really identify a much greater purpose in it besides just winning a race and seeking glory essentially. So I was happy to dedicate myself to it. It was something I was interested in, but I knew it wasn't going to last long for me because I needed to be doing something that had a purpose, a bigger purpose, a purpose that was bigger than myself. And I figure maybe riding my bike across the country will push me to my limits, and that'll be what I can use to discover a greater purpose. And so planned it out, hopped on my bike, started in Bar Harbor, Maine, rode 30, 35 miles a day for about 181 days through the winter. So I went across the Rockies in February.
whoa, what was that like? Your little snow tires? Like, what is that
Snowy,
like? Like, what's it like
cold,
going down mountains
snowy.
and ice and snow? What is that like? That's crazy.
It's really scary because there's black ice and there's all sorts of stuff that I slipped. I'd be riding down these big mountains and I would just completely slip and slide off the side of the road a couple times. And it was definitely scary, but I wouldn't be out there riding if it seemed too dangerous. I wasn't trying to die or anything. So I didn't have a problem with looking at the conditions and going, not safe. I'm just gonna wait another day for this snow to go away.
You start in Maine, right? So
Yeah.
one thing I picked up listening to your interview with Jocko, you didn't wait to get in shape. You used the process to get you in shape, right? Like, can you describe that?
Basically, I mean, I made sure that my legs fit right. I made sure I knew how to ride my bike and I was comfortable on it, but I didn't really figure that it made a whole lot of sense for me to stay in Charlottesville and ride in circles until I felt like I could do it because there was no timeline. It was just, I'm going to start, and then however long it takes me to do it, I'm going to take that long to do it. And so I just figured I should just start. And the first half of the ride would be training for the second half. Maybe it seems a little bit silly, but it made sense to me. And obviously it worked out because I made it.
And if that's not enough, not only recovering from your injuries, getting a medal in the Paralympics, riding your bike across the country. Hey, let's do 31 marathons in 31 days in 31 cities. That's freaking nuts. That's insane. Where does that come
Yeah,
from? As you're riding your bike, does that thought come in your head, or is that like afterwards? Like, when did you decide to do the marathons?
that was a couple years later. After I finished the bike ride, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I met my wife at the 2012 Paralympic Games. I met her there, and but we were doing a long distance relationship. She was from England, and she was continuing on. She competed in 2012. She was going to continue on in 2016, so she was still training, but she had to stay in England in order to train. And I kind of wanted to do something next that would facilitate me being able to go see her as often as I could. And I figured, well, I'll start training for the Paralympics again. Except I'm not going to do rowing. I'm going to do triathlon because I could train triathlon anywhere. And I just finished the bike ride, so I figured it would be a good transition. The challenge was I selected a category that where I would have to ride a regular bike and run using running prostheses on purpose because that's what I knew how to do and that's what I wanted to do. The problem with that was that I was having to race against guys that had one fully intact leg and they would just crush me on the bike because they had that one full intact leg. But what I noticed was I would crush them on the run. So what I kind of rediscovered during training triathlon was I had a natural talent for running. Just have some fun during my training. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon. I finished it, and that showed me that I could run a marathon. And so when I finally called it quits on triathlon, after recognizing it wasn't going to work out, I was thinking about, well, what do I want to do now? And at that point, I've been noticing for a while that the perception around veterans had been shifting from in the beginning of the war, we were all kind of seen as strong, indomitable heroes that could face anything. And then by the time 2016 came around, it seemed like we were all being portrayed as broken heroes because all the veteran characters I saw in a movie or in a TV show or news stories songs, everybody was being portrayed as hopelessly haunted by what we had seen in war and constantly on the cusp of implosion. And that didn't sit right with me because that didn't represent me. I wasn't feeling that way, and most of my friends didn't, and I knew that most veterans didn't feel that way either. And so I wanted to make sure that a good story about a veteran got out there, a veteran that experienced some of war's worst traumas and came back and was actually fine. I just wanted that story to be out there. And I figured the only way for that story to get out there was for me to create a story that would get out there. So I figured I need to do something that people think is insane, run a bunch of back-to-back marathons as a double above knee amputee. And that way people can't help but pay attention to it. So I decided I was going to run a full month of marathons. So I ran 31 back to back, which is the longest month.
Wow. You raised money for veteran charities. Is that what you did with?
Yeah, we raised about 225,000 for various
Let's
veteran
go.
charities.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
With the bike ride we raised 125, so that's about
So good.
350. Yeah.
A question I glanced over earlier. When you're coming in, you start in Bar Harbor, Maine, and you're biking across the country. Do you remember the moment? Where was the final stop in California? Where did you end
Camp
up?
Pendleton.
Camp. Okay. Do you
Yeah.
remember pulling into Camp Pendleton? What that feeling was like when you're the last couple yards? What was that like?
It was incredible, man. It felt like it was an incredible relief. I was very proud of what we had done. But I think mostly I would say relief and excitement that I didn't have to ride my bike again the next day.
That just that's
But
wild.
yeah, just like it felt great because my mom was there, my dad was there, my sister was there, all sorts of people that were there that I had known throughout my recovery and my time. And so it was really great to be able to finish such a big endeavor in front of them. And a lot of those people had helped me with the bike ride logistically and with the media stuff and all sorts of things like that. So I got to finish it for all those people that helped me as well. So that was really gratifying.
What a baller. And then how about with the 31 marathons in 31 days? You remember crossing the finish line on the number 31? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember crossing same kind of a feeling. Definitely relief, definitely a full circle moment because even more people from my life were there for that. And obviously I had my wife was there with me. She ran the last little bit with me and all that stuff. And so that made it even better. And it was even more relieving because I had a back injury that I was dealing with for the last four marathons. So that created a little bit of uncertainty about whether or not I'd actually be able
Mm.
to pull it off. So even more a relief on that one. But yeah, it was incredible.
Doing those 31 marathons, 31 days biking across the country, is it more of a mind game or a body game or a 50-50? What do you think it is?
I would say 90% mind, 10% body.
Really?
I mean, the body just does what your brain tells it to do. So
Yeah.
if you have a brain that's telling it not to do it, then it's just not going to do it. But if your brain tells it to do it, then yeah, it's going to do it. Now, if there's an injury or
Mhm.
something that makes it so your body physically cannot do what your brain's trying to tell it to do, then yeah, that's another thing. But just having to endure pain and discomfort and feelings of fatigue and not wanting to do the thing, that gets overcome by your mind, by a strong mind. So I'd say it's 90% mental, 10% physical.
Man, life is such a mind game, isn't it? Just every facet of life is just freaking mind games, isn't it? You just got
Yeah.
to,
And just having a purpose in your mind. Your
yeah.
mind just has to know what purpose it's doing. What purpose is it putting the body through such pain?
So
And if
good.
it's a powerful enough purpose, then the pain that you can endure increases significantly. And another part of it too, another reason that the 10% is body is because you do, I mean, for certain things, you do have to prepare your body for it.
Hmm.
It would have been a lot harder for me to do the month of marathons had I not trained for a year and a half first.
Hmm.
So you do have to prepare the body to withstand the challenges that the mind wants it to do, but still, at the end of the day, you're not going to do that training unless you have a strong mind.
Yeah. And then just moving over to the part where it's just like the exclamation point on top of the exclamation point. Not only do you recover like a baller, you go to the Olympics and get a medal in rowing. You bike across the country, 31 marathons in 31 days. Then you go, hey, you know what? Let me go on stage and try stand up. Where's that come from? So you do stand up comedy. What's scarier, that or biking across the country? Oh my gosh.
I
How'd
mean,
that come
given
about?
5 minutes, probably the stand-up comedy is probably a little scarier.
Oh my gosh.
Stand-up comedy is something that I'd always been interested in. I grew up waking up at 6 o'clock and watching evenings at the Improv on TV, waiting for my parents to get up and go to school.
Yeah.
So I remember and I was always just trying to be, I don't know, I was just like making people laugh. That's kind of my mentality is I would like to be funny. I like to be in making people laugh, all that kind of stuff. Always thinking of funny things to say. And the older I got, the more I got into, found out about stand-up comedy and more interested in it I got. And I just kind of always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to do it. And then when I was in the hospital, I got an email from Wounded Warrior Project saying, "Hey, we have these film producers they want to do a documentary about teaching wounded veterans to do stand-up comedy, and they're looking for applications." So I sent in an application, and they liked it, and they accepted me, and so we did this documentary called Comedy Warriors. I think that's on Amazon Prime now, where they flew us out to Los Angeles for a couple days at a time. They had us sit down with some comedy legends like Bob Saget, Louis Black,
Yeah.
B.J. Novak, Zach Galifianakis, people like that.
Yeah.
We'd perform for them. They'd give us some tips, and then that evening we'd perform in the showcase at the Improv and Laugh Factory, places like that. And they, documented the whole thing. And so that kind of gave me the experience, and it showed me that I could do it. People laughed for the most part during my sets. And then the intervening years, I would just, from time to time, I would just do open mics from every now and then.
How long's your set? Like if you went up and someone says, "Hey, could you do a little set?" Like how long is your average set that you go up?
Most open mic sets were like 5 minutes, but
Yeah.
I think I did a set once that was probably 20, 25 minutes.
That's an eternity, man. Trying to make people laugh for 20 minutes. That's a long time, man. Who are your favorite comedians? Like top three. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of comedians?
Definitely Jerry Seinfeld,
Yep.
Louis C.K. I really like Stephen Wright
Yep.
a lot. Oh, and I don't know about the fourth one. It's hard to pick just this one. Oh man. I'll go Chris Rock.
Chris Rock. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many great ones. They're all four amazing ones.
Yeah.
So
I'd have to
good.
go back and look at all the shows I've seen to really give you a good, accurate one, but that would probably be the four off the top of my head.
The big overarching thing in the book, I love the antagonist you wrote in the
Yeah.
book is not the Taliban. It's like the terrorist in your own head. Could you speak to that? I thought that was very creative and that really gave the book, it just had a great aspect of the book. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, every book needs a good antagonist for the hero to fight against. The problem with my story was it wasn't fiction. I wanted to tell it like a fiction. I wanted it to write like a fiction book, but I didn't really have an antagonist because the antagonist basically goes away in the very beginning. The terrorist that put he's the guy that was my main antagonist. After that, nobody ever really would serve the role of an antagonist. I'd never really had anybody fighting against me to prevent me from doing what I was doing, except my own inner thoughts, my own inner doubts, fears, complacencies, all these different things. Those were the only things that were really getting in my way in terms of characters. And like I said, it's 90% mental, so that's a pretty big antagonist. And so what I did was to make it interesting for the book, I figured, well, ultimately what the terrorist that put the IED in the ground, ultimately what he wanted was for my mind to be defeated. He wanted my spirit to be defeated. He wanted me to be the invalid in a wheelchair being taken care of by my mom because that would destroy my life. It would destroy her life. It would destroy a bunch of people's lives. And if enough people did that when they got wounded, then that would damage the will of the American people to the point that we would give up. That's what he wanted. I kind of linked those two things together. Every time that my mind was telling me or trying to convince me to do something that I was not going to be in my best interest or against what I decided I wanted to do, that was essentially him trying to stop me from living my best life. And so basically what I did was I turned that inner monologue that I had into conversations between me and the inner terrorist, the terrorist that put the landmine in the ground, to try and make it more interesting to read about these are the things that were going in my head that could have
Yeah.
stopped me, that I had
Yeah.
to overcome.
Like you said earlier, it's all a mind game, right? It's mind over body. Wow.
Yeah, spoiler alert if anybody that wants to read it, but in the end I realized that the whole time the way I finally defeat the inner terrorist was recognizing that he never really was my enemy. He was actually my friend because every time he told me something he was warning me about dangers ahead. He was helping me overcome those dangers. He was forcing me to plan for those dangers, forcing me to face those fears and all these different things. He was forcing me to do that, and by overcoming them, I became stronger. So really, what I recognize is I go, "Hey, this whole time, I thought you were my enemy, but you were really my friend," and that's how I finally defeat him.
That is awesome. Rob, first off, thank you for walking us through that. I like to do
Sure.
wrap this up. A couple fun questions that we call share your secrets so that our listeners can get to know you a bit more as a person. Rob, you got running marathons, Olympic medalist, biking across the country, rehabbing from a major injury, stepping on stage as a comedian, husband, parent, leadership instructor at Echelon Front. So much going on. Rob Jones, when you need to clear your mind and recharge your body, what do you do?
But I need to clear my mind and recharge my body. I'll either go for a run, go for a jog, go work out, or I might just sit down in my comfy chair in my office and just think. I like to think, and I like to if I'm faced with something that's bothering me, I like to just sit down and think about it and write some notes about it until I kind of figure out what is causing this, what am I doing that is making it worse, and what can I do to make it better. And so I really do just like to sit there and think about things and try and figure this puzzle out. I feel a little bit unsettled until I figure out until I understand it and figure out what's going on. But sometimes I can do that by sitting down in a chair and thinking. Sometimes
Mhm.
I can go out and run and think about it. Sometimes it'll be in the gym, I can think about it, but really I just need that time to think.
So important. That's something we just don't do as a species too much. Sit down and
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I could do it a lot more too. Half the time I'm walking around, I have a podcast in my ear or something that I
Yeah,
could probably do some with some more thinking time as well.
remarkable book. What did you learn writing this book? Like you went through it, you lived it, but then when you sit down and put it all in one place and relive it as you write it, is there a lesson that you learned? What did you learn
Yeah,
writing your own story?
I think the primary thing I learned that is that I'm awesome. No, I think the biggest thing I learned about that was just about how to tell a good story. Because I read this book called The Story Grid. It really advised how I wrote the book. And what I realized is that anytime you're trying to share a story, there's certain elements that you have to have in there. And if you don't have it in there, your story sucks. But what I realized was that you can apply that to just any kind of communication in your life. You have to be able to communicate well. And if you don't communicate well, your communication is not going to be received. And if you want your communication to be received, you have to do it in a way that's interesting to people. And it really informs the way that I do leadership instruction now at Echelon Front. The primary things I try and make sure I do is make sure that the audience is engaged and enjoying the lessons that we're teaching and enjoying the workshop or enjoying the keynote. And because if they're not, then they're on their phone or
Mhm.
they're thinking about something else or they're not paying attention. And the stuff that we teach is so important that I have to make absolutely positively sure that they are paying attention to what we're saying. And the best way for me to do that is to make it interesting. And so I think that's probably the best thing I learned about in that book is just how to tell a good story and the elements of a good story.
Wow, that's so important, storytelling. How much does your stand up come into your leadership instruction? Do you start with jokes or anything like that? Like, how does
I'm
that
not
work?
doing bits or anything like that, like I used to. I mean, every now and then I might, but yeah, it comes into play heavily. I mean, my
Has
sense
to
of
be.
humor comes into play
Yeah.
heavily. One of the first things I like to do, it's extremely important to me when you're teaching a workshop or you're teaching a keynote to establish a powerful rapport with the audience. You have to have a
Yeah.
connection with them.
Sure.
If they don't feel connected to you as the teacher, then again, they're not really paying attention. They're probably gonna be thinking about something else. They're not really buying into what you're saying. But if you connect with them and you're on the same page, you're on the same level, and you're engaging with them, then now you're their friend. They like you, and when they like you, they're going to pay attention to you more. And one of the fastest ways to make a friend is to crack a joke and make somebody laugh. I mean, think
Absolutely.
about when you get into an elevator and there's one other person there.
Yeah.
You have a couple options. You can get in the elevator and you can just stand there awkwardly with the other person until you both get to your floor, and then you're like, "Have a good one," and then you both get off or whatever, and it's this really awkward
So
ride.
awkward.
Or you can get in the elevator and you can make some sort of a snarky comment or some sort of a comment about how stupid the elevator is, like this, why the button is broken or something like that, or I hate how you have to scan your stupid card or whatever, and
Yeah.
the other person laughs, and you laugh, and now you've broken through that awkwardness and you've
Yeah.
worked on something together. You're a team.
Yep.
You're the team of people, and maybe that opens up other things that, or maybe it doesn't, but the awkwardness is gone,
Yep.
and the guy likes you, you like him because you just worked on something together. And so the fastest way to establish a quick relationship is to make somebody say something that makes somebody laugh and opens
Yeah.
up to the
Laughter is
more
like
we
the
laugh.
it's
Yeah.
such a connection point. You can make someone laugh. They say in sales, if you can make someone laugh, you can make them buy. And you look, there's a couple of dudes I know that definitely outkick their coverage with their wife. And the one thing that they all got in common, they make them laugh. They're funny dudes, right? They have like
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
personalities. Anyway, that's great.
Yeah,
Now,
man. I mean, and it's just, and there's something to be said there about brevity too. If you take something too seriously, then it becomes this the insurmountable thing. But if you can laugh at it,
that's great.
then it brings it down a peg. Brings the
Yeah.
size of the problem down a peg if you can laugh at it. So yeah, if I can make somebody laugh at their problems in a workshop, or if I can make them laugh about how they don't want to take ownership or they're the problem with something, because sometimes I'll present a situation to somebody and I'll do a theoretical reaction that they might have, and they laugh because they know that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And we all laugh about it. I'm like, yeah, don't do that again. And they're like, yeah, you're right. I totally do that. So yeah, me making people laugh is a great way to make a friend. It's a great way to teach people, I think.
That's awesome. Now, thanks for sharing that. Three questions to wrap this up here. First one, Rob Jones. If you could have everyone listening take just one lesson away from everything we discussed, what would that lesson be?
Act in the best interest of other people at all times. If you can do that, then that's how you get the greatest strength that you can possess as a human being. That's how a Marine can jump on a grenade. That's how I could walk through a minefield. That's how that's how you get strength from thinking about what do the people I care about the most in my life need and how can I give that to them? And being able to link that very powerful feeling to them link that all the way down to why you have to do this tiny little action right now. Why do I have to do why should I wash the dishes when it's my spouse's turn? Why should I do this thing or that thing, this very small, seemingly mundane thing? If you can link those two things together, then it makes it very easy to do that very mundane thing. And the more of those little things you do, the happier everybody's going to be and the happier everybody's life is going to be. So it's just about always thinking about how you can help other people.
That is so awesome. Act in the best interest of other people, and that's your source of strength. That is awesome. My goodness. Thanks for sharing that. All right,
Sure.
two fun questions to wrap up here, Rob Jones. Here we go. First one, Rob, if you could spend the day with famous or not famous, alive or dead, who would you spend the day with?
There's so many people that I already look up to that I've already spent days that I do get to spend days with. If this had be somebody that I don't get to spend a day with very often, I'd pick my grandfather
Really?
because he died when I was in eighth grade and he didn't get to see the person I became. And I really loved him growing up and he was a big influence to me. And I would really like to let him see what I've become.
How would you spend the day with him? What would you guys do?
Uh, one of the things that he used to take me to do was golf, even though I was like 10 and he sucked at it and I sucked at it. But that was one of the things we went out and did together. He liked taking me to, only did it, 4 or 5 times, but we did that. So maybe I'd go play some golf with him or something. Maybe some putt golf instead of regular golf, or maybe we'd play cards together. Maybe we'd just sit down and play cards or something like that. If I could do that, I'd probably spend the day with him and my grandma. But yeah, because we would play cards.
Golf or cards with the grandparents is awesome. We all
Yeah.
miss our grandparents every day. How about this last question? All right, Rob Jones, if you had to get a quote or a saying tattooed on your body, what would that quote or motto say?
Man, there's so many quotes that I've even considered putting on my body as a tattoo. I think the one that I'm considering doing most is from JFK's moon speech,
Mhm.
where he's asking why go to the moon, and he says, "We choose to do these things more not because they are easy, but because they are hard." So maybe not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. That JFK moon speech, I think, is
Yeah.
about as good as a spot as any to wrap this up. What I like to do, Rob, is close with one of my favorite quotes from the book, or it would have been one from your podcast this year. I wrote this down. This is from Rob Jones. The blast took my legs, but it didn't take my mission. I'm still in the fight, not against the Taliban, but against the voice in my head that says I can't. Every marathon, every hike, every ride, every time I put my legs on and walk out the door, I'm proving that the weight doesn't crush you if you use it to get stronger. That's the lesson the Marine Corps taught me. That's the lesson Afghanistan confirmed. And that's the lesson I hope everyone listening takes with them. You don't need legs to stand up. You just need to decide you're not going to quit. The guest is Rob Jones, author of the awesome book, Put Your Legs On: One Man's Journey to Survive, Recover, and Live. Rob, it is such an honor to have you on Built Not Born. Thank you for your service. Thank you for sharing your amazing journey. And thank you for sharing all these life lessons, man. It's such an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Joe. I really appreciate the time talking to you. It's a great interview. It was a great honor to be with you.
Rob, if people are looking for you and what you do online and your book, where can we find you?
Yeah, the book's on Amazon, so super easy to go get it. And I'm on social media, Instagrams, Rob Jones Journey. I'm on LinkedIn, Rob Jones. My website is robjonesjourney.com. So those are kind of the main places people can find me.
What I'll do is I will put all of them in the show notes. Definitely go out and get Rob's book. And Rob, thanks for leading the way. Thanks for being one of the backbones of this country. And thanks for sharing your story. You're inspiring so many people.
Thank you, Joe. I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Rob. Take care,
All
buddy.
right, bye.
See ya.